2, 3.
In the beginning, nothing. No movement, no sound, complete emptiness. Then, something. A speck, an idea. The idea could be anything. It could be everything. Light. Color. Shapes. Sounds. And most exciting of all, life. Everyone can conduct this power. Everyone has an imp. Imps are the key to the power of the Dreamiverse. The Dreamiverse teems with their energy, waiting for you to choose your very own. Which one is yours? Yes! That one belongs to you. Now to see what your imp can do. Press and hold the options button, and your imp will snap. Yes! Great! Your imp responds to the smallest movements of your wireless controller. That's because it's attached to the controller's motion sensor. You only need to move the controller a teeny tiny amount to get your imp to respond. Go on, move your imp around a bit. Think of the light bar on the front of the controller as a flashlight beam conducting your imp. You see that little cluster of creativity? Move the pointy part of your imp to touch it. That's it. Now, collect those two clusters at the top and bottom. See how that feels. Yes, magnificent. You can also nudge the imp against the edge of the screen to recalibrate it. Anytime your imp gets unruly, press and hold the options button to recenter it. Now, let's play with the Dreamiverse. See if you can catch all those dancing shapes. Unleash those colors and sounds. Very good. You're a natural. Wow, it's a symphony. See how your imp can affect everything it touches, wandering, soaring and leaping, playing to the wilds of your imagination. You're amazing. You're wonderful. You're a dream surfer. Oh no, You found the wall of doubt. Don't worry, everyone doubts themselves in the beginning. See that loose brick? Try using the pointy tip of your imp to grab hold of it. That's it. Pull that wall down. Look at that brick. Who does it think it is? Get rid of it! Your idea's getting away. Chase it down. It should be in here somewhere. Oh, more barriers. Cast them aside. There it is. Come on, keep up. Dark. The only source of energy is you. What can you do?
One,
two,
three.
dream.
We have light. A good start. If only we had a way of exploring this place. Now we're really getting somewhere. There must be some way to get up there. Great work. We're so close. Ah, look at that seedling. The Dreamiverse loves to help things grow. That's it. Amazing what a little nurturing can do. Almost there. We're here at last. Dreams, your vast, vibrant, sublime universe of possibilities. Let's start dreaming. Ah, this is your very own home space. You'll always start dreaming from here. As you can see, my little cone friend is happy to help you wander around. Press R2 to possess it. You got a prize bubble. Well done. There's a lot more around. They've got all sorts of useful goodies in them. See if you can find a few. Excellent finds. Now for the entrance to the Dreamiverse. Press the circle button to get your imp back. Use the tip of your imp to click on that little ball of energy. So much to see. Decisions, decisions. Choose dream surfing to experience other dreamers' creations, or pop into dream shaping to make something of your own. Ah, dream surfing. Here we can explore the wilds of the Dreamiverse, slipping and sliding through the strangest and most wonderful ideas and creations. Lose yourself in the kaleidoscope of games, animations, music videos, and all sorts of worlds and experiences made by dreamers just like you. Dream surfing is a never-ending, ever-changing stream of dreamers' imaginations. Let's try it out. Ah, the home space editor. A great place to start your creative journey. We're still working on this right now. In time, you'll be able to put things you've made here so it feels like your own. Look at all the wonderful things you found. There's lots more where these came from. And look at the things the folks at Media Molecule left for you in MM stuff. Ooh, that looks fancy. Where's nice for it to go? This is dream shaping. Here you have the power to manifest anything you can imagine. Anything. Music, a story, a piece of art, a whole game, even something there isn't a word for yet. Create things from scratch using the dream tools. Or you can use them to remix something another dreamer has made. For now, I'll take you to the Dreams Workshop, where my friend, the Dreams Architect, will introduce you to the secrets of creation. Go on in. He won't bite. Promise. So you want to learn the ropes of dream shaping, but you don't know where the tools are on the shelf, or how to use that intriguing gadget, or you want to know what that strange contraption over there does. Architect, assist us. Ah, hello, Architect.
Hello, Queenie. Why am I a squirrel?
Just a temporary physical form for you. I like it. It's cute.
Well, thank you. It's better than the last one.
Now, show this dream shaper how to unleash their creative powers.
Done! Follow me, dreamer. Oh, it's so exciting that you're here. I have been really looking forward to this. There is so much to show you. Gameplay, animation, art. There's no limit to what's possible. This is the Dreams Workshop. Which controller do you have? I hope you've got your imp under control. I've got some spectacular tricks to show you, and some that are just all right. Make sure you follow the steps carefully if you want to get the most out of this tutorial. It's not just about getting to the end, it's the journey that counts. Shortly, you'll be in edit mode, creating and editing your own scenes. First, I'm going to show you how to move around a scene. Welcome to edit mode. You can see that we're in edit mode because the assembly mode icon is in the top left of the screen. If you ever need to remind yourself of the controls, select that icon with the X button. And select it again to hide the controls. You can also see the assembly menu at the top of the screen. That's where you'll find all the tools and modes you need to construct your scenes. The assembly menu is opened and closed by pressing the square button. You won't need it just yet, so go ahead and close it with square. First, I'm going to show you how to move around in edit mode, as it's a bit different from play mode. To give you something to do, I've hidden a puppet somewhere in this scene, which we'll need in later tutorials. I've left some clues to help you find it. Before we search for the first clue, let's start by looking around. In front of you, you can see a floating island with some shapes on it. If you move the right stick to the left and right, you can look around the scene. Is there an orange cone around here? You found it. There's a blue cube around here somewhere too. See if you can find that. Now try looking up with the right stick to find the pink pyramid. That's the one. Okay, Let's turn back towards the shapes floating on the island. My first clue is hidden somewhere on this island. Move around the island using the left stick. Push it left and right to move sideways, and up and down to move forwards and backwards. Remember, left stick to move, right stick to look around. Easy! If your imp ever feels off-center, hold the options button to recenter it. Can you find anything here that looks like a clue? Once you've found the clue, you're ready to move on to the next step. If you want to re-watch this step, you can. Hover your imp over the buttons on the video to see what they do. Use the skip buttons to move between tutorial steps. Or just rewind 10 seconds if you miss something. If the video gets in your way, grab and move it with your imp using R2. You can minimize the video and play along with audio only. Or you can maximize it to watch in Instructions View if you prefer. In Instructions View, you can see more information about the steps. Once the current step is finished, press the arrow button to move on to the next one. Did you find that clue? It was on the back of one of those shapes. Looks a bit like a rocket. I do love a cryptic message. Why don't you look around with the right stick for any rocket-related goings-on? Ah, look over there. On that island in the distance. Those shapes look a lot like the ones in the clue. Go on, fly over there and check it out. Remember, push up on the left stick to move forward and use the right stick to change direction. And don't forget, you can recalibrate your imp by holding the options button. Once you reach the island, make sure you're looking right at the cylinder and the cone. When you're ready, move on to the next step. Think back to the first clue. The cone was on top of the cylinder, right? But how can you move them? Well, in edit mode, you interact with everything using your imp, the very tip of your imp's pointy part. See how there's an icon in a circle there? That shows you what tool the imp is using. Right now, it's the arrows icon, which means the imp is using the move tool. That's the default tool in edit mode, because editing a scene means moving things around a lot. Let's see the imp in action. First, grab the cone. Hover over it with your imp and hold R2. Now your imp has the cone, use the controller's motion sensor function to move it around. Try to put it on top of the cylinder, just like in the clue. Use the left stick to move the cone backwards and forwards. Objects in scenes can intersect and overlap, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'll show you how to refine it later. Once you're done, you're ready for the next step. Now, that looks pretty good, at least from this angle. Creating scenes in three-dimensional space means that you should always look at your creations from different angles. The easiest way to do that is with the grab cam. Instead of moving the objects you grab cam moves your point of view around them. Try it out on the cone. Hover over it, then press and hold R1. Pushing the left and right sticks moves your point of view around the cone. Easy! Now that you can get a proper look at it, check that the cone is on straight. Unlike mine. Let go of R1 to stop using the grab cam. and use R2 to make any adjustments you need. Here's a little secret called nudge. If you don't press R2 all the way down, but just hold it lightly, you can move the cone slowly, giving you finer control. Once you're happy the cone is straight, you can move on to the next step. Hey, look at that. Another clue. It's a molecule. I know because I put it there. Just play along with me. Why don't you look around with the right stick and see if you can find another molecule? There's one, over there by that island. You're hot on the trail. It'll take forever to get there using the left stick. Luckily, you can use the grab cam to get there faster. Give it a try now. Hover your imp over that orange cube in the distance. Hold R1 to grab it with the grab cam. Then gently push up on the left stick to zoom right over. Just keep holding R1 until you've made it all the way to the island. See? Told you it was quicker. But there's an even faster way to zip around scenes. It's just like the grab cam, but you'll also need to hold L1. You see, L1 is a very special button. You know the way that on a computer keyboard, holding down Shift changes what some keys do? Well, in Dreams, holding down L1 changes what the other buttons do. Maybe it's best if I show you. You see that rocket you built earlier? Hover your imp over it. Now hold L1 and then press R1, the grab cam button. You don't have to hold it or use the stick this time. Whoa! Fast, huh? Try it out again on the return journey. Hover your imp over the orange cube and hold L1. Then press R1 to zoom right on over. Now that you know how to move around quickly, see if you can find the next clue somewhere on this island. Remember to use the grab cam to look around the whole island. Once you've found the clue, you can move on. Did you find the last clue? It was on the back of the orange cube. What on earth could it mean? If I had eyes, I would wink at you right now. I can't see any other green trash cans around. Unless... Of course, the trash can is the icon for the delete tool. I'm so devious. That must mean you need to delete the orange cube. You can delete anything in edit mode using the triangle button. Just hover your imp over the cube. Then press triangle. And it's gone. These tools are powerful. Delete the orange sphere next. If you change your mind or delete the wrong thing, you can press undo, which is the left directional button. And if you want to redo, just press the right directional button. You can undo and redo pretty much anything, not just deletions. Oh look, there was a clue hidden in the cube. An arrow. Perhaps there's another one like it nearby. Look around with the right stick and see if you can spot it. Once you've found it, you can move on to the next step. That was my final clue telling you where to go. The island right above us. I know you're an expert in moving around with the left and right stick now, but I've got one more technique to show you. Remember that holding L1 changes what the grab cam does. It can also change what the left stick does. Normally it moves you backwards and forwards in the direction you're facing. But if you hold L1 at the same time, the left stick will make you move up and down instead. Try getting up to the last island that way. Position yourself so you're looking at the orange arrow which is pointing up. Now hold L1 and push up on the left stick. We have liftoff! Keep pushing the left stick until you reach the island. When you're ready, move on to the next step. Right, here's the puppet I reserved for you. Let's call her Connie, 'cause she looks like a cone. We need to help Connie walk through the door to complete this tutorial. To do that, we're gonna have to switch over to play mode. Remember, right now you're in edit mode. This is where you create and edit your scenes. In play mode, you can experience the scene just like a player would if they found it in the Dreamiverse. You can't make any changes in play mode, but you can take control of characters and try out what you've made. Switch over to play mode now. Just press the options button on your controller. Hover over the controller icon with your ink, then press X to select it. To control a puppet in a scene, you first need to possess it.
Want to carry on with the fundamentals? You can also press the circle button to see other topics.
Now you've got the hang of moving things around in edit mode, it's time to master manipulating objects. Just as well, because Connie's friend Cuthbert fell asleep in the Dreamiverse and got stranded. Yes, he's a cube with legs. Connie didn't choose her friends. I did. So, we need to fix these platforms if she's going to reach the flag and get to Cuthbert. Before we start, you can switch to play mode to see how a player would experience this scene. You'll always need to test things out in play mode while dream shaping, so it's a good habit to get into. Press the options button, then select play mode with X. Its icon looks like a controller. Once you're in play mode, take control of Connie with R2, and we'll see how far she can go. Start by jumping over to the first platform. Oh dear, looks like it's too far for Connie. Move that first platform closer. To do that, head back into edit mode. So, open the options menu and select the button with the pencil icon. Once you're in edit mode, move on to the next step. We have to do something about... Now the only thing separating Connie... Hurrah! Connie and Cuthbert have been reunited. But now they need to find a way out before Cuthbert falls asleep again. So let's learn how to find a door in the Dreamiverse. Go to the Assembly menu, which is the row of buttons at the top of the screen. The Assembly menu disappears when you're busy working on a scene, to make sure it doesn't get in the way. So if you can't see it, just press square to open it. Here you'll find all the assembly tools, modes, and gadgets. If you ever wonder what a button does, just hover over it for a few seconds to see more info. This menu is also where the search button lives. It's the one with the magnifying glass. Select it now with X. The search button takes you to the Dreamiverse, where you'll find all the things created by dreamers from around the world. But for this tutorial, I've selected a collection of elements that you can use in this scene. Let's see if we can find a door in the Start Dreaming collection. Select it with X. Have a look around. What elements do we have here in the collection? Now you know how to grab, rotate, and scale objects. It's time I showed you how to clone things. Cuthbert has managed to get himself stuck again. Luckily, I've set up this scene so that we can use the clone tool to rescue him. With this tool, you can make exact copies of anything in the scene. This makes it one of the most useful tools in a Dreamshaper's toolbox. You'll also get a chance to practice with all the other tools that you've learned so far. If we get Connie off this platform, maybe she'll help us out. Let's use the clone tool on this one small block to create a bridge. Remember how we used the L1 button to modify how the grab cam and the left stick work? Well, it can also change how the grab button works. Hover over the floating block with your imp and hold L1. Now grab the block with R2, and remember that if you press it gently, you can move it more slowly. Now you have another block. That's because grabbing things while holding L1 creates a clone of that object. Once you've created the clone, you can release L1, but don't let go of R2 until you're ready to place it in the scene. When you've found the right spot, release R2 to put it down. You can treat a cloned object just like you would any other element. You can move it with R2 and rotate it with L2. And scale it up and down with the directional button. Getting Connie to that third platform looks easy enough. There's half a bridge between them, so we can just clone this block to finish it off. Okay, hold L1 and grab the block with R2 to clone it. Let go of L1 to stop cloning, then place the clone by releasing R2 to complete the bridge. That doesn't look quite right. Might need to try something different here. Why don't we rotate the clone? Hold L2 over it, then push the right stick sideways. Well, it's better, but now they don't match. We should probably undo everything with the left directional button and start again. This time, we'll make the arches match up by flipping the clone. Here's how you flip objects. First, hover over the arch and hold L1. Then gently grab the arch with R2 to create a clone. Remember, release L1 once you've made the clone. You have to release it or the next part won't work. Here comes the cool bit. While still holding the arch, click the L3 button on your controller to flip the arch horizontally. Okay, Connie, we've almost made it to the door. But she needs to go across and up now. Good thing you already know how to make clones because we're going to need them. So hold L1 and grab the block with R2 to clone it. Now place that clone a little higher than the original, and you know what? There's a better way, so let's undo that with the left directional button. We're going to try a new technique called repeat cloning. I bet you can already guess what it does. That's right, it lets you make lots of clones at once. Let's give it a go. Hover over the block again, hold L1 and press and hold R2. Let's get back to the staircase. It's looking pretty good, but I have one more thing to show you before you move on. Let's get rid of all the clones we've made by pressing the left directional button a few times. You'll notice all the repeated clones are undone together. Now hover over the first block, hold L1, then grab it to create a new clone. Remember to release L1 once you've made the clone, otherwise the next bit won't work. This time, move the block where you want the last step of the staircase to be. There, right in front of the door. Don't let go of R2 yet, though. Instead, press the left directional button and... look at that. You've created a sequence of clones between your imp and the original block. You can keep pressing left to create more steps or right to remove them. Once you're happy with your staircase, let go of R2 to place it in the scene. You can create incredible shapes with repeat cloning, so feel free to experiment. Welcome to part 4 of our Start Dreaming tutorials. Ah, I see Cuthbert has managed to get himself in a pickle again. Connie, how do you put up with him? What a spanner. But with Connie's help, we can rescue him. This time around, I'll show you how to select and group your creations and how to scope in and out of groups. Luckily, use. Remember how to repeat clone blocks to create a bridge? Well, let's do that again. Move your view side on to the block and the gap. Hold L1, then grab the block with R2. Move it with the motion sensor function to create a clone. Just like last time, let go of L1 while still holding R2. Then press the directional buttons to make more clones. Now, you probably noticed that all the blocks, the original as well as its clones, were selected automatically after cloning. You can tell when things are selected because they have an animated dashed outline. But after we switched between play and edit modes, everything was deselected. So let's select them again. All you have to do is hover your imp over one of the blocks and press X. There's the outline again. Now do the same to the rest until the whole bridge is selected. Can you see how each block has its own outline, with a double line where they meet? That's because they're still individual elements. You can deselect them one at a time with X, but it's much quicker if you deselect them all at once with circle. Give it a try. There's also a faster way of selecting multiple objects. Just select one as before, but this time keep X held down. Now move your imp to select the others. Better than selecting one at a time, right? So much faster. The great thing about having multiple objects selected is that you can manipulate them as if they were one object. For example, if all the blocks are selected, you can clone the bridge sideways to create a double bridge. Plenty of room for Connie to cross it without falling off the edge. Try it in play mode. Once Connie is across the gap, you know, this bridge would be really useful to help Connie cross to the next platform. Use X to select all the blocks again. If we're going to use this bridge a lot, we can make it into a group. That way, it will behave like a single element and you won't have to keep selecting all the blocks. Have you noticed the menu at the side of the screen? It appears when you have one or more objects selected. That's the context menu. The options it gives you will depend on the situation you're in. In this case, all the buttons relate to selected objects. Look for the plus sign. That's the icon for the group button. The number next to it tells you how many objects you've selected. You can use this button now to turn all of those blocks into a group. There we go. The bridge is now a single element. You can tell because it has one outline around it instead of one around each block. And if you look over at the context menu, you'll see the group button now says ungroup. Use it if you want to break a group up. But we still need it to help Connie. So let's clone this bridge and place it between the second and third platforms. Just like before, hold L1 and grab the bridge with R2 to clone it. As always, remember to let go of L1. Ah, we don't need to test the bridge to see that it's not going to get Connie to the third platform. But don't worry, we'll fix that in the next step when you're ready to move on. Our bridge needs a bit of work if it's going to reach the next platform. This is the perfect opportunity to learn a new technique, scoping in. Scoping in means you can jump into a group and edit the contents individually without having to ungroup it first. And since you can only edit things inside the group, you don't have to worry about messing up anything outside it. Let's give it a try now. Select the bridge with X if it isn't already selected. Then find the Scope In button near the bottom of the context menu. Notice that it's showing you a shortcut for it, L1 and X. So hover over the bridge group, hold L1 and press X. Now you're scoped in. We can now edit all the parts as if it wasn't a group. If you want to really focus on just the group, you can hide everything else in the scene. Just use the Hide Everything Else button in the context menu. The icon looks like a closed eye. There's also a Scope Out button in the top right corner. This is how you exit groups. Try scoping out now. Select the button with X or use the shortcut, L1 and circle. That's it. Now scope back in again so we can fix the bridge. Just hover over it, hold L1 and press X. I think what Connie needs to reach the next platform is a staircase, so use the Move and Clone tools to create a new one. Is your staircase working? Fantastic. Now Connie just needs a bit more help to save poor old Cuthbert from his predicament. Luckily, you can clone your staircase group to reach the final platform. Use the clone shortcut, L1 and R2, to copy the staircase group to the last platform. Don't forget to let go of L1 once the clone has been created. That's how useful groups. If you select the group, you'll see that saves the group as a new element. Saving a group as a new element means you can use it in other scenes or share it in the Dreamiverse. You can't do that in tutorials, but you can everywhere else. Now that you've mastered selecting and grouping, I'll leave you with a thought to ponder. You can also make a group inside a group. With that, I'll let you experiment. Once you're happy that you've mastered selecting, grouping and scoping, you have just one thing left to do. Go into play mode and take Connie and Cuthbert to the exit.
Now to explore the wider world of dream shaping.
In this tutorial, you're going to learn all about the exciting world of logic. Pay no attention to Cuthbert. It's not as complicated as it sounds. I promise. Let's check out the scene. See the buttons on the platforms in front of our good friend Connie? They activate the bridges that will take her to the next platform. At least that's what they're supposed to do. To get them working, you'll need to connect them to the gadgets that control them. You can't see gadgets when you're in play mode, but they let you do all sorts of useful things in edit mode. You can tell gadgets apart by their color and icons. Green gadgets are sensors and inputs. This one is what we call a trigger zone. It's one of the more versatile gadgets. It can trigger other gadgets when it detects something in the scene. Like in this case, Connie standing on the button. Hi, Connie. If you select the gadget with X, you'll be able to see its detection zone. That's it, right there above the button. Press the circle button to deselect the trigger zone, and let's look at the next gadget. Red gadgets are movers and outputs, meaning they make things happen in the scene. This particular gadget is a rotator, and it's connected to the first bridge. Click R3 to start time, and let's see what it does. Well, not a lot right now by the looks of it. That's because the rotator is switched off. You can tell because the gadget is dim at the moment. But if we connect these two gadgets together, we can turn the rotator on using the trigger zone. In the next step, I'll show you how. Before we start connecting things, make sure you can see both gadgets. You'll notice they have ports sticking out of their sides. Ports on the left are inputs, and the ones on the right are outputs. Hover over the output port on the trigger zone now. You'll see the word detected appear. That means that when the trigger zone detects something, this output will send a signal. Before it can send that signal to the rotator though, we'll need to connect them with a wire. So hover over the detected output and press R2 or X. You'll notice your imp is now tethered to the port by a wire. Power ports have appeared on the gadgets too. It's these ports that switch gadgets on or off. Okay, drag the wire over to the red rotator gadget. Now hover over the power port at the bottom, then press R2 or X. Once the gadgets are connected, the wire will disappear automatically. That way, your scene won't get cluttered. After all, you don't want wires all over the place. You can see the wire again by hovering over either gadget. Now that we've connected the rotator, let's take a look at the second platform. See the white gadget on its side? This gadget isn't a sensor or an output. It's called a microchip. Microchips are used to organize logic in scenes. You can think of them as boxes of gadgets and wires. Before we start connecting things, make sure hover text something. This output will send a signal. So hover the or X. Once the gadgets are connected, the wire will disappear automatically. That way, your scene won't get cluttered. After all, you don't want wires all over the place. You can see the wire again by hovering over either gadget. Okay, time to test our connection out. So let's switch over to play mode in the options menu. That's more like it. Now the trigger... Okay. After all, you don't... or X. Okay, drag the wire. So hover over the detected output and press R2 or X. You'll notice your imp is now tethered to the port by a wire. Power ports have appeared on the gadgets too. It's these ports that switch gadgets on or off. Okay, drag the wire over to the red rotator gadget. Now hover over the power port at the bottom, then press R2 or X. Once the gadgets are connected, the wire will disappear automatically. That way, your scene won't get cluttered. After all, you don't want wires all over the place. You can see the wire again by hovering over either gadget. Okay, time to test our connection out. So let's switch over to play mode in the options menu. That's more like it. Now the trigger zone detects Connie when she stands on the button and activates the rotator on the bridge. As soon as she steps off, the rotator stops working. You can use the button to get the bridge lined up with the platform. Once Connie can make it to the second platform, you can head back to edit mode and move on to the next step. Now that we've connected the rotator, let's take a look at the second platform. Press X. It's just like scoping into a group of objects. This window is the microchip's canvas, and if these gadgets look familiar, it's because they're two rotators. Each one controls half of this jointed drawbridge. Try to connect the output from the trigger zone to the power ports on the rotators. You can create multiple wires from the same output. Or you can clone wires in the scene by holding L1, then grabbing them with R2. Clone the wire near the rotator to create a new wire from the trigger zone. Once you've connected the trigger zone to the second rotator, switch over to play mode and make sure it's all working. OK, jumping on the button now will activate the trigger zone and raise the drawbridge so that you can cross over the... Oh, wait a minute. The bridge has dropped down before Connie could cross. That's because the signal to the rotator stopped sending as soon as Connie stepped off the trigger zone. Switch back to edit mode and rewind time with L3. In the next step, I'll show you how to make signals stay on. Connie stepped off the trigger zone. Oh, and make sure it's all working. Why? Micro. Press X. It's just like scoping into a group of objects. This window is the microchip's canvas. And if these gadgets look familiar, it's because they're two rotators. Each one controls half of this jointed drawbridge. Try to connect the output from the trigger zone to the power ports on the rotators. You can create multiple wires from the same output. Or you can clone wires in the scene by holding L1, then grabbing them with R2. Clone the wire near the rotator to create a new wire from the trigger zone. Once you've connected the trigger zone to the second rotator, switch over to play mode and make sure it... If we want the bridge to stay up, we'll need to add a gadget between the trigger zone and the rotator to keep it activated. We can do this with a counter. So let's go into the assembly menu. Press square to open it if it's closed. Select the Gadgets menu with X. You'll find the counter in the Logic and Processing section. The gadgets in this menu take an input signal and change it in some way before sending it on. Go ahead and select the counter. Its icon is a tally counter. Now you can see the gadget on your IMP. Hover over the microchip and it will snap to the canvas. Press R2 or X. Now you and change it in some X. You'll find the counter in the Logic and Processing section. The gadgets in this menu take an input signal and change it in some way before sending it on. Go ahead and select the counter. Its icon is a tally counter. Now you can see the gadget on your IMP. Hover over the microchip and it will snap to the canvas. Press R2 or X to stamp the counter onto the microchip, then press circle to unequip it. The counter gadget counts up or down whenever it receives a signal through its inputs. By default, it starts its count at 0 and has a target of 1. Once it reaches that target, it sends a constant signal through its counter-full output port. Before we connect it though, let's tidy up the wires connecting the trigger zone to the rotators. Just hover over them and press triangle to delete them. Now press R2 or X over the detected output of the trigger zone to create a new wire. Connect it to the increase count input port on the counter. That's the port with the plus sign icon. Now when the trigger zone is activated, the counter will go up to 1. And, this is the important part, it will stay at 1 even after the trigger zone deactivates. Now hover over the counter-full output port of the counter. This port sends a signal when the counter reaches its target. Create a wire with R2 or X and connect it to one of the rotator's power ports. Then do the same for the other one. Time to switch to play mode and try out our new connections. When you're just one more bridge for Connie to cross. As you can see, we have another microchip on the platform, so let's open it up. Hover over it with your imp, hold L1 and press X. Okay, looks like we have everything we need here. But Connie's an adventurer, so how about we make this last bridge more challenging? Adding a timer to the logic should get the adrenaline going. Once Connie activates the button, she'll only have a few seconds to cross before the bridge drops back down. Let's head back to the assembly menu. If it isn't already open, press square. Then go into the gadgets section. You'll find the timer in the same place as the counter, the logic and processing section. Its button has a clock face on it. Now go ahead and stamp the gadget onto the microchip with R2 or X. Then unequip it from your imp with the circle button. Now let's take a closer look at the timer's inputs and outputs. You can see their names by hovering over the ports. The first input is a start timer port. Once this receives a signal, it will start the clock. The second one is reset timer, which sets the time back to 0. Over on the output side, we have timer finished and timer output. Timer finished sends a signal when the timer reaches the required number. It's set to 5 seconds by default. Timer output is a little more sophisticated. The signal it sends represents the timer's current progress. If, let's say, it's only halfway to its target, the signal it sends will be half strength. So how do we connect this so the bridge only stays up for a few seconds? Well, we need the bridge to be raised while the timer is running. So create a wire on the timer output with R2 or X. Remember how we used the counter on the previous platform? We can use one here too. Just like before, connect the wire to the counter's increase count input. Then connect the counter full output to the rotator's power port. Time to see if it works. Click R3 to test it out. As you can see, since the timer isn't connected to a trigger yet, the clock starts ticking as soon as we play the scene. The bridge goes up, but doesn't drop down when the timer finishes. That can only mean one thing. There's a problem with the logic. If you'd like to figure it out for yourself, feel free to check the gadgets and see what's wrong. Or move on to the next step and we'll go through it together. So let's take a look at why the bridge stayed up after the timer finished instead of going back down. Remember how we used the counter earlier to remember the signal from the trigger zone? Well, now it's remembering the signal from the timer, so we need to make it forget that once the timer finishes. Let's go over to the counter gadget. Hover over the inputs to see their names. This one here is Reset Count. It'll put the counter back to 0, which will turn off the rotator. So all we need to do is connect it to the timer, but to which output? Aha! There we go. We can use the timer finished output. Hover over it and create a wire with R2 or X. Then stretch the wire over to the counter and connect it to the reset count input. But we also need to reset the timer, otherwise the logic will only work once. So let's get another wire from the timer finished output and connect this one to the reset timer input. You'll recognize it by the rewind symbol on it. All we have left to do is to connect the trigger zone to the start timer port so Connie can activate it. Okay, that was a lot of connections. So before we test it out, let's go over the logic we've made. First, Connie activates the trigger zone, which sends a signal to start the timer. Once the clock starts running, the timer output becomes active. This tells the counter to count up. That then turns on the rotator and raises the bridge. Now this is where the really clever stuff kicks in. After 5 seconds, the timer finishes its count, which activates the timer finished output. This in turn resets the counter to 0, cutting the signal to the rotators and lowering the bridge. So let's take a look at why the bridge is tested out in play mode. So, in this tutorial, you'll use logic to make health go up and go down. Oh, Cuthbert. Let's start by going into play mode. See if you can get Connie across that first gap. Oops. Sorry, Connie, I forgot to fix that. Don't worry though, even after falling such a long way, Connie's just fine. There's only one problem. There's no way for her to get back up. What we need is for Connie to respawn on a platform if she falls. So that's going to be our next job. First, switch back to edit mode. Remember to rewind time with L3 as we always do after play mode. In order to make Connie respawn, we're going to use a health modifier gadget. We'll use it to make the floor around the platforms lethal. Health modifiers can damage or heal anything that has a health manager. And, as luck would have it, Connie has one built into her logic. Go to the assembly menu. Open it with the square button if it's closed. Select the gadgets menu, the one with the 3 connected squares. You'll find the health modifier in the movers and output section, which is represented by a box with an arrow. Now select the button that has a clockwork heart on it. Your imp will now be equipped with a health modifier gadget. Stamp it somewhere central, near the floor, using R2 or X. Then unequip the gadget with circle. Your scene now has a health modifier. But to make it work as intended, we'll have to tweak it first. We'll do that in the next step. Let's go ahead and open the Health Modifiers Tweak menu. Hover over it, hold L1 and press square. Here you can set the options for how the health modifier works. That includes how much health is modified, which is shown in the first slider. Right now, it's set to -100. This means it will take 100 health points away from anything it affects. Just enough to make Connie respawn. The modifier mode is set to per hit, so 100 health points will be taken away when anything touches it. But since we want the area around the platforms to be lethal, we need to set the modifier type to zone. Select the zone icon with X now, then go to the Zone Properties tab so we can change its size and shape. The icon is at the top of the menu and looks like a box in a zone. Look for the Zone Shape section of the menu, then select the cube. You can use the zone sliders to make the zone bigger. Be careful not to make it too tall. The respawn zone should be level with the pink lines around the platforms. If you need to, move the health modifier gadget nearer to the floor. When you hover over the edges of the zone, you'll see white arrow gizmos appear. Grabbing these with R2 will let you change the size of the zone. Using those, you can make sure the area around the platforms is covered. Now let's test it in play mode and see what happens. Perfect. If Connie falls off now, she'll just respawn back on the platform. Before we move on, maybe we should do something about this booby-trapped bridge. Switch back to edit mode and rewind time with L3. There. See what's causing it? It's that trigger zone. When Connie activates it, the bridge collapses and there's no way across. If you've finished the first logic tutorial, you'll know that the counter is being used to remember the trigger zone has been activated. If you follow the wires, you'll see there's one connected to each block. These red dots on the blocks are not gadgets. They show that a wire is connected to a setting in the block's tweak menu. Explore the logic for yourself. Or, if you want to move on and get Connie, now's probably a good time to show you how to add checkpoints. When playable characters like Connie activate a checkpoint, the scene remembers their progress. So when they respawn, they'll appear at the last checkpoint instead of starting off at the beginning. Go to the Assembly menu, then the Gadgets menu. If the last section you used is still open, close it by pressing circle over it. Expand the Gameplay Gear section with X, then select the checkpoint. It's the one that looks like a location marker. There. Now your imp is equipped with a checkpoint gadget. The direction of a checkpoint determines which way a character will face when it respawns, facing the direction you want Connie to face. Remove the gadget from your imp with the circle button, then open the Checkpoints Tweak menu. Checkpoints use a detection zone, just like health modifiers. So select the Zone Size tab from the menu. This is set to a sphere by default, but to make sure it can't be missed, let's change it to a cube. You can use the zone size sliders to make the checkpoint cover the width of the platform. Above the gadget, you'll see a white Move gizmo. Grab it with R2 to put the activation zone where you want it. Just make sure Connie can't miss it. The white handle shows the direction Connie will face when she respawns. Check that it's pointing the right way. Grab it with R2 if you need to adjust it. Let's close that tweak menu with L1 and circle. Now try it out in play mode to see if the checkpoint remembers your progress. Sorry, Connie. We're gonna have to respawn you again. But it's all in the name of science, I promise. Great, there she is, right at the checkpoint again. When you're ready, go back to edit mode, rewind time, and move on to the next step. This next bridge looks a bit too hot to walk on. But Connie's a tough explorer, and she's always ready for danger, so let's give it a go. Okay, that block's too big for Connie to jump over. Better get her back to safety before it's too late. Let's switch back to edit mode and see how the bridge is damaging Connie. Move closer to the bridge and keep an eye out for any gadgets attached to it. Ah, there's one. A clockwork heart icon, so it's another health modifier. It looks like, instead of using a zone, this one is attached to the bridge. So whenever Connie walks on it, she loses health. If only that block wasn't in the way, she could make it across. But what if the block itself could lose health? We could give it a health manager of its own and see how that works out. Go to the assembly menu, then open the gadgets menu. You may need to close the gameplay gear section if you opened it earlier. Then you can expand the movers and output section. Look for a heart icon, not the clockwork heart this time. Select it with X to give your imp a health manager gadget. Stamp one near the block with R2 or X, then press circle to unequip it from your imp. To make the health manager affect the block, we'll need to attach it. The easiest way to attach gadgets to objects is to use what we call surface snap. Grab the health manager with R2 and hold it over the block. All you have to do to activate surface snap is hold L1 while your imp holds the gadget. This makes it hug the surface of any object you hover over. Now release R2 to attach the gadget to the block. You can also let go of L1 to stop using surface snap. In the next step, I'll show you how to tweak this health manager. Now that we've given the block health, let's take a closer look at it. Hover over the health manager, hold L1 and press square to open its tweak menu. The sliders here define the block's maximum and current health. Click R3 to play time, and you'll see the health starts to go down. That's because the bridge's health modifier is damaging it. But you'll notice it's going down much slower than Connie's health was when she was on the bridge. The reason for that is this health manager has a 1-second cooldown. So whenever the block takes damage, it's invulnerable for 1 second after that. Grab the cooldown slider with X and pull it to the left with your imp. So what happens when it reaches 0? Not a lot right now. But we can deal with that in the next step. For now, feel free to experiment with the health. An object doesn't automatically get destroyed when it runs out of health, so we need to do a bit more work before we can get rid of that block. Let's take a closer look at its health manager. If its tweak menu is still open, close that first with L1 and circle. See the output ports on its right edge. Hover over the one at the bottom, the one that has a heart with a cross over it. This is the no health output, which sends a signal when the health manager is depleted. It can be used to trigger any number of things, but right now, we're going to use it to destroy the block. Go to the Assembly menu and take a look in the Gadgets section. It may still be open from earlier when you selected the Health Manager. Look for a skull icon on a button in the Movers and Output section and select it with X. This is the Destroyer gadget. It destroys whatever it's attached to. To attach it to the block, we can use Surface Snap. So hover the Destroyer over the block, hold L1 to make it Surface Snap, and press R2 or X to stamp it. Now you can unequip the Destroyer gadget with Circle. Okay, before we connect it up, let's just see if it works by clicking R3. Oh, it works all right. When time is running, the Destroyer activates and destroys the block. Rewind time with L3 to bring it back. We don't want the Destroyer to activate until the block's health has run out. To do that, we'll need to connect the No Health output port to the Destroyer's power. So hover your imp over the Health Manager's No Health output port and press R2 or X to create a wire. This will make power ports appear on the gadgets in the scene. Stretch the wire over to the Destroyer and connect it to the power port with R2 or X. Great! Time to test it again with R3 and see what happens. When the block's health runs out, it will get destroyed, leaving the path clear for Connie. But how do we know how much health the block has left? We could always look at its tweak menu, but you can't see that in play mode. So click L3 to rewind time, and I'll show you how to display health in the next step. If the Health Manager's tweak menu isn't open already, open it now with L1 and square. When you hover over the menu sliders and buttons, you'll see ports popping out of the side. These work just like the ones on the outside of the gadget, but there are a lot more of them. And you might also have noticed that there's another gadget stamped on the side of the block. That's a number displayer. If we connect a wire from the current health output to the number displayer's input port, we'll be able to see the block's health count down in play mode. So let's go ahead and do that. Hover over the current health slider's output port. Then press R2 or X to create a wire and stretch it to the number displayer. Once you've connected it to its input with R2 or X, you can switch over to play mode and test out the whole scene so far. Excellent. Now we can see the block taking damage until it's destroyed. Once you can get Connie to the next platform, switch back to edit mode and move on to the next step. Well, Connie made it through, but she's a bit worse for wear. The burn effect you see on her is triggered by the current health output from her Health Manager. It gives you a visual cue of her health. The more singed she gets, the less health she has. I'm not sure poor Connie has enough health left to make it across the last bridge. What she needs is a bit of healing, so let's create a healing zone where she can recharge. This green pad looks like a good place to recover. We can turn it into a healing zone by placing a health modifier on it, using Surface Snap. You've used Surface Snap before, so this should be no problem. Go to the Assembly menu and select a health modifier from the Movers and Output menu. It's the one with the clockwork heart on it, remember? Now activate Surface Snap by holding L1. Then attach the health modifier to the green pad. Now you can unequip the gadget with the circle button and open the modifier's tweak menu. We need to change it so it heals Connie. The health modifier is set to -100 by default, which won't do Connie any good. She has 100 health to start with, so that will take it all away and make her respawn. Grab the slider with X, drag it right, and set it to +20. We want the healing zone to heal Connie while she's standing on it, so you also need to set the modifier mode to continuous. You can leave the modifier type as impact, since you've snapped the health modifier to the platform. And that's all there is to it. Close the tweak menu with L1 and circle, and give it a try in play mode. All right, that should give Connie the health boost she needs to cross that final bridge. Oh, she's been through a lot today, so take her through the door to end this tutorial.
Oh, look at you. This is your aura. Your creativity grows and evolves. Your aura will change to reflect your activities. You can become a specialist at one aspect of dreams, or dabble in every area as you like. It can also help others find you, so you can combine your talents and make something amazing together. In a moment, you'll be creating and editing your own scenes in edit mode. Scenes are like levels in a game, or scenes in a movie. They're made up of elements. Elements are like props, sets, music, effects, and characters. Anything that you can build inside a scene and save to the Dreamiverse. Scenes are connected together to form dreams. And these dreams can be found when you go dream surfing. Need a little inspiration? When we need new ideas for the Dreamiverse, we have a jam. We thought you might like to do that too. Every so often, we set a topic we're curious about, and anyone can make and submit a dream on that topic. Or you can just play through the current entries and see which ones you like. When time is up, we'll feature the dreams the community loved the most. Go on, give it a try. Ah, a nice little spot to show everyone your best self. And a place for your fluffy, impy friend to live. Make yourself comfortable. Here's where you come to customize your imp. This is just a small selection. There will be lots more.